the places nobody goes. I wanna teach all the things that nobody knows. I wanna grow wings, leave the coop, learn to fly. Bungee jump from the tallest building in Dubai. I wanna fly around town in my UFO. I wanna eat real food, not the GMOs. I wanna make moves, call the shots like the boss. I wanna love like I never lost.
We now return to Desertwood Days with Kathy Blaze, sponsored today by Dork Publishing. Learn more at dorkpublishing.com.
Welcome back to Desertwood Days. I am so excited to have our next guest here. She's an actress, she's a professor, and she is a theatrical director. Let's welcome Rachel Finley. Hello there.
Hello.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, such a pleasure. Such a pleasure. Rachel, you do so much in our community, in the theatrical world. That is one of the reasons I really want to have you here because, you know, I've had other individuals in theater here, a couple of theater directors, but there's so many of you out there doing things that we don't hear from, and our community need to see more of you so that they can get out there and support what you guys are doing in the community.
Thank
So
you.
that's why I wanted you to be here today. So, Rachel, I'd like to start off by asking, where are you originally from?
I'm originally from South Florida.
Okay.
Yeah, so I grew up down there, but I also went to high school in North Carolina and did my undergrad in Pennsylvania, so all up and down the East Coast.
Yes, yes. So what brought you here to Arizona?
I was offered the opportunity to be a professor at Arizona State University.
Okay,
So,
cool.
yeah, and I just really loved the university's charter and what they said they were about
Oh,
really matched with my own values, so it seemed like a great fit.
that is awesome. So what was it that got you into wanting to be a professor?
Well, when I was going through, so I went through undergrad and graduate school without ever having a professor that was not white in my entire undergraduate and graduate
okay.
time. And my professors were wonderful. I loved my professors, and they taught me a lot. But I didn't have anyone who could relate to my experience. Or who could prepare me for how I would be treated in the industry because they didn't have that experience of what it is to be a person of color in this industry.
Right.
And so I wanted to be for other students what didn't exist for me.
Right. And especially in an area where more of that is needed, like in the area where ASU is.
Yeah.
So there is more of that needed. And I know there's more of that needed in the high schools and the grade schools as well as the higher level learning. So you're a professor, you're an actress, you're a theatrical director, you do other things in our community. What was it that got you into the industry of being a theatrical director and an actress?
Yeah, so I actually started in high school.
Oh.
I went to an arts magnet high school in North Carolina. And I first went there because I wanted to be a writer.
Okay.
But the school didn't have writing as a major, they just had it as a class. And you had to audition to get into the school, and you had to have a major that was one of the majors. And so I decided to audition for the theater program, even though I had never done any theater before in my life. And I managed to get into the school. And they had a directing program within the school as well. And I discovered that not only did I actually end up loving acting, I also loved directing. And I ended up never taking a creative writing class while I was there because I ended up not having room on my schedule. I just found too many theater classes that I just absolutely loved.
That is awesome.
So yeah, just discovering that love in high school is what really sort of launched me into it. And discovering how, you know, with storytelling, you could have such an impact on an audience.
Right.
And, you know, people could be moved to tears. They could be moved to joy. They could be moved to excitement.
Yeah.
They could relate to what they were seeing on the stage. Or they could learn a perspective that they had never imagined before.
Of
So
course.
that was what really excited me about theater.
Of course. And you know, most times you think of all those things, you're thinking about the writer's point of view. But you just told us the other point of view of the person that's performing from that paper.
Yeah.
That's exuding all of that. That's awesome. So with all that you went through, was there someone that inspired you while you were growing up and going through all of that experience?
Well, it's fun. There's a lot of people, of course, that inspired me. On a celebrity level, I was always inspired by Whoopi Goldberg. Like, I just absolutely loved her when I was a kid.
But you know what? How couldn't you?
You know,
I mean, because she was so different. She was unique. I mean, she was that funny girl. I mean, she was just so different at that and at the right time.
Yeah, and not just funny, soulful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, yes, she was funny, but there was also a depth to her work. You know, and so much beauty to her in a time when her appearance didn't match what we were told was beautiful.
Oh, yes.
Right? But she was beautiful, right? And is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And
I love that you said that. Yeah.
And so I really was inspired by her in a lot of ways, and never imagined that I would be in, you know, as a child, imagined I would be in an industry that she was in.
Yeah.
But I just found her absolutely inspiring, regardless.
Because you know what, we're still not far from that time where the way she looked wasn't accepted.
Mm-hmm.
Because just think of just a few that's not considered beautiful to this day that's doing amazing things out there in the industry.
Yeah.
I mean, she's inspired a lot. I mean, she inspired you, but there's the ones that are up there in Hollywood status that is at her level, that they weren't seen as beautiful actresses.
And I think she's inspired a lot of people that are not actors. You know?
Yeah, she has.
Because it's just being, I think there's a thing of just being inspired to see yourself, right? And that doesn't have to mean that you become an actor.
Oh,
there's a lot of other things that you can become by just being inspired to see yourself.
Just being,
you know?
Just being and living in the world and being yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, and accepting yourself for who you are.
Absolutely.
And that's what people like her give to us by doing all those attributes that you just listed there, by showing up is first. Whenever you do anything, it's all about showing up as you are. And she did that, and we saw that. And now that's why there's so many other individuals such as yourself that's showing up as you are. And people have to accept it, or they don't have to, and they can just move on.
Right, and you know, if they don't, that's okay. She created her own work when there was no one creating work for her, right? And that's something that I do as well. You know, during COVID, I got a grant and I created a one-woman show that was a digital piece, and you know, there was no one creating work for me. I created my own work, you know, and that's what you have to do, I think, in this industry, and probably generally speaking, if you're, and you may not even have to wait to see whether or not there's going to be work for you. If there's something that you're inspired to create, you get up and you do it. Right?
Yes.
You know?
I love that's my mindset, and that is one way I've always worked when it came to things that I've done in industry. If it's not there, you create it yourself, and that was a saying that my grandmother instilled in me. If it's not there, then you create it, and that is what I've always tried to do, and help other women that may have felt that this is something I can't do, or I'm going back to Whoopi, or I'm not accepted because of my size or the way I look. Well, then you go and you create what you want the world to see, and that is what I've always promoted. So you spoke about a one-woman show that you did. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was called American Bullet, and it was a combination of spoken word, poetry, movement, and digital art that I created. It was inspired. So in 2017, there was a mass shooting at my son's high school in Parkland, Florida. And so part of that piece was inspired by the emotions that came out of that that shooting that happened. There were several people that were very close to us who passed away in that shooting. And then also a lot of the other gun violence that that I personally experienced, as well as gun violence that I witnessed from a distance. And so the piece is very much about sort of the American love affair with guns and gun violence. And that tightrope walk that we have with freedom versus safety.
That's a whole new show right there. So when you say digital art, what do you mean by that for those that may not understand what that means?
Yeah, so basically it just means that that rather than it being a live performance, it is one that involved videography
Okay.
and forms of editing where the way in which it's edited is as much a part of the performance as the actual performance itself.
So it's out there somewhere where we could go and see it if we wanted to?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube.
Okay,
Mhm.
that is awesome.
Yeah.
And what's the name of it?
American Bullet, and it was
American-
produced by Gable Stage.
Okay, awesome. Being a theatrical director, you're casting, you're writing scripts. Okay, that was something that you didn't do because you were doing the acting and being a director. So when did you get into writing?
Well, I got into writing when I was 6 years old. And the first thing I ever wrote was a love poem to my grandmother. So, and from there, I just really loved how writing gave me a chance to express.
Okay.
So I've done writing ever since then, whether it be for commissioned work purposes or for self-expression as well. And now I also do academic writing. I'm currently writing a couple of chapters for some academic books as well.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
you always felt comfortable with that skill of being able to write your
Mhm.
own work. There was never any doubts there, was there?
Fortunately, no. That's one thing I was always encouraged from a very early age, and probably in part because my ancestors were also good writers. My great grandfather was born during slavery, taught himself how to read and write, started a school, started a church. Was a big proponent of education and reading and writing in the community in North Carolina. So it's something that got passed down to me.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. And I know that you are very recognized here in Arizona in the theater community. And as a professor, you're very welcome, recognized as well. But what is it that you're doing different in the theater world that you may not even hear others talk about?
Yeah, one of the things is intimacy direction. And I think that's something that's very misunderstood for a lot of people. When they hear that term intimacy direction, they don't know what it means.
Right.
And I've heard people say, "Oh, that's the person who makes sure that you're okay." And there's to some degree that's true, right? It is about making sure that people are okay. But I think it's helpful to start with what does it even mean, right?
Right.
So an intimacy director is someone who works in scenes that involve either nudity or simulated sex or even just kissing, anything that could be contact between two actors that wouldn't be normal contact between coworkers, right? And we help to make sure that those scenes are done in a way that is professional, is safe, but also tells the story dynamically, right?
Yes.
So it's similar to how a fight choreographer works with fight scenes. We will come in and we know all the safety protocols that will help to ensure that things are done safely, but we also have ideas about how to make it dynamic and make sure that it's telling the story that it's meant to tell as well. So we're both creative and safety related in the work that we do.
And that's something that, whether it's theater or film, that should be added to whatever is being done in a production team. There should be someone there if we're going to be dealing with intimacy.
Yes.
Because no one should just be thrown into a scene where they don't feel comfortable. Or because it's not, like you said, it's not going to come across on the camera that this person is comfortable.
Right.
Because, first off, if they're not aware that it's going to happen, because sometimes I've been on sets or scenes where someone may touch you and you don't expect it.
Yeah.
So those are things that needs to be discussed and people are aware of what this is.
Exactly. It's just as much about making sure that the story is being told and making sure that the actors are being respected and safe, as anyone deserves to be in their workplace.
Right. With you being, I don't want to call you an intimacy coordinator, I don't want to call you that if that's not your title, but what's being done to make sure that we are aware of this in the community, that this is a thing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, of course, I'm trying to do my part to help with that and raising awareness with the local theaters as well.
Okay.
I've done some work with Southwest Shakespeare Company.
Okay.
I've had some conversations with Arizona Theater Company and
Okay.
Phoenix Theater as well. And I know that there are others in the Valley that are also doing this work. So there's also the Arizona Intimacy. Oh goodness, the name just went out of my head. But there's an Arizona Intimacy Coordinators group that is also working to make sure that theaters throughout Arizona are aware of this Arizona Intimacy Professionals.
That's wonderful. It probably would be a great idea to have someone, at some of the film festivals when they have the panels, have someone go and talk to the panels about things like this as well.
Oh, that's a good idea. Yeah.
Yes, I mean,
Absolutely.
because we know it's being discussed in theater, but I'm not sure if it's being discussed in film. So it would probably be great to get them on board also,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes we cross paths and we work together, and so someone needs to be aware of this on the other side as well.
Yes, absolutely. And anyone who's interested in knowing more can feel free to reach out to me, and I can share the names of other intimacy directors
Okay.
throughout the Valley or throughout Arizona,
Okay.
and make sure that they're aware of the network of people that are doing this work.
Wonderful.
Mhm.
I will get that information and reach out to you, okay?
Fantastic.
Are there any new projects you're working on right now, Rachel?
Well, yes, I am expecting soon to be working on. Well, there's a few that I'm in talks with that I haven't had the signed contract signed yet, so I don't want to say the names yet. But there will be several local theaters that you can look out for me to be working with.
Okay.
I also have some national and international projects that are in the works.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So I will be announcing those on my social media as the contracts end up being signed for
That
those
is
as well.
So you're doing all this
Yeah.
work. You're also a professor also. Are you a full-time professor?
I am. I'm a tenure track professor at
Okay.
ASU.
Okay. So what is that like? I mean, are you in the theater program at ASU as well?
I am. I'm actually the acting concentration and performance practices coordinator at ASU, which means that I help to coordinate the curriculum for the acting concentration and ensure that the classes that we need to have available for students are available for them to successfully be prepared for the industry when they leave us.
This is just your life.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what you do and who you are.
It's my passion.
Yes.
It's my passion.
Yes. What advice would you give to that person that wants to get started in theater?
I would say the first thing is see theater. Right? Go out and see as much theater as you can. Learn about the theater. Right? The more that you know about what it is that you want to create, it'll spark ideas for you.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is go out and study theater, right? So take classes, whether you're able to go ahead and go full-fledged into university or you take local classes throughout the Valley. There are some really great local classes that are available if you're just trying to get your feet wet and figure out if this is something you want to do.
Right.
There's some great classes available. So, start by taking some classes, see how you feel about it, see what's for you. And then also do your research on what the people that you admire did, right? And you may not do the exact same thing they did, but what they did may inspire you and give you some ideas.
That's true. I love that. So where can our audience find you?
So they can find me on social media, Rachel Finley on Facebook or Rachel Finley Arts on Instagram. Of course, they can always reach out to me at ASU, Arizona State University, and then my website, rachelfinleyarts.com.
Okay. Rachel, I'd like to ask you, is there a favorite quote you have?
A favorite quote?
That you may, is there one that you may live by, or you may, if there's something you're going through, you may think of that quote?
There's so many. The one that's coming to mind right now is actually one that my sister taught me, and she lives by, and it comes back to mind quite often as well, which is be the change that you hope to see in the world. And I think that one, that's one that's recurring in both of our lives.
Yes,
yeah.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So it was such a great plan to have you here today, because you gave us a lot of information about theater. And because, I think people see theater as this thing, I don't know, like you remember when you was a kid, you were playing house and you're just having fun. They don't know all that you guys go through. I mean, how hard you guys work out there. You rehearse for days and days and days, and then to get out there and just throw it all out there in front of it live audiences, maybe 5 days a week.
Yeah, there's no do-over in
There's
theater.
no do-overs.
Yeah.
So I thank you guys for all that you do out in our community.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
It was such a pleasure. And thank you for joining us here today on Desertwood Days, and we'll catch you next time.
Today's episode of Desertwood Days with Kathy Blaze was sponsored by Dork Publishing. Visit them at dorkpublishing.com.